everyone, I hope you are keeping well. In this session, this is our last session basically. So, in this session we are going to discuss the health, population and development, or population then health and development. Several aspects of how health or several health indicators are important in terms of making a development, in terms of say health is good, lower the mortality rate, higher the expectancy, and health is good in the one term also means that if lower the child mortality or infant mortality, lower will be the birth and the number of population or the population growth rate is also lower, and then it has an implication towards the countries or societies development. So, we will try to understand the population size, the variations in terms of population composition, and how it is connected with health, and then further other way how these population variations or compositions have an effect on the development as such. So, I will try to start my lecture with the subject called demography. In demography, we talk, demos is population, graphy is science. So, it is basically the population sciences or the studies which the studies on population or human population. Yeah. So, that is demography. And as you know, the development is for the population, therefore, development is directly associated with population. Population causes development, development brings changes to the population or to the people. The most prominent theory related to demography and and economic development is associated with the birth rate and death rate. Yes, birth rate and death rate along with migration causes changes in population size and composition, causes changes in population size and composition, and this change determine the level of development. Again, this level of development brings changes to the birth rate and death rate. So, the theory we are talking about is known as demographic transition theory, or the demographic transition, or the theories of demographic transition theory. So, what it says, it basically has 4 stages. Yeah, this demographic transition has 4 stages. So, on the x axis we measure time, and with time of course economic development. Yes, with time we are developing, right. With time we will measure economic development, and over here we will estimate birth rate and death rate. Yes. So, what happens in the first stage of development? So, I will just break it into 4 compartments. Yes. So, this is my stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 and stage 4. In the first stage, it is the the development is very poor, a high level of infectious diseases, high mortality rate, very low life expectancy, right. And in that, as people have uncertainty about how many will live, and then also in that level of development, society is strong if they have number in their favor. The larger the society, they are more strong. Therefore, one is to ensure the the number of family size against a high death rate. So they will give birth to a large number of children. So that is what, and no idea about no idea about contraception, no idea about better health or better education. So naturally the birth rate, the birth rate will be high, because there is no investment basically against the children, and then the death rate is of course high with that, famine, war, natural calamities and all. So at this condition, both of these, if this is my death rate is high, and I will see that what happens in the second stage. So in the second stage, with the scientific development, slowly the death rate starts falling, which has it has different time period for different countries. In Western countries, maybe it has started taking place post 1850s, or all the industrial revolution in Britain and all other Western European countries or USA. At the same time, in India, probably it has only taken place in 1950s. Yeah, so the death rate has started falling down in the second stage of development, or with the time. In the third stage, we see the death rate is again falling, but the fall has declined, the rate of decline has reduced. That's primarily because it is already reaching a minimum level, and in the last stage it has reached a minimum level, that the death rate, as far as it was possible to avoid by the sciences, it has done so, and people has to die. So the death rate will be positive, but it will be low. On the contrary, what happens with the birth rate? It will be little up and down, it can eventually, but the death rate, I can eventually show the death rate as up and down. So whichever way you like. So there is, yeah, so and I will keep the birth rate as same. So straight line, and then what happens is, with this at a first stage where there is a high birth rate because of the high death rate, but it takes time to realize that the death rate is falling down, or the people's life expectancy is increasing. It takes time to realize that. So, and birth is a behavioral process. So just understanding, oh my God, I am living more, or my children are living more, so let's not reproduce any more child. So really doesn't make sense, and it makes sense when it is given time, so that people start realizing the impact of a higher population size. So what happens in the second stage, when the birth rate starts falling, the death rate doesn't really fall. So and death rate starts being high. In the third stage, it falls. In the third stage, it falls like this, rapidly. Yeah. Whereas in the fourth stage, again, either way it can be something like this, and hence this one is my birth rate. This one is my death rate, and this period, this area is known as natural increase or natural growth, because the birth rate is high and then the death rate is low. What we have seen in, say, maybe post 1970s, or around 1970s or 1950, maybe 1940 to 1980, something like that. And slowly the birth rate is coming down. We are in the third stage now as a country in India. We are in the third stage. Sub-Saharan African countries, maybe they are still in the second stage. All developing countries, they are in the fourth stage, where both the birth rate and death rate is low. Eventually it can be birth rate is lower than the death rate in countries like Japan, so where the growth rate is negative basically. So more people are dying as compared to the rate of birth. So this is all about demographic transition. With the demographic transition, in tandem with this demographic transition, the disease pattern also changes. So how this disease pattern changes, that is explained by the theory of epidemiological transition, given by Omran. Theory of theory of epidemiological transition. Now, what this theory says? This theory says again they follow the same, 4 stages. Over here you can keep time and level of development, and over here maybe the vital rates, prevalence rates and all this. And what we see that in this stage 1, now I will change the color, stage 2, stage 3 and stage 4. Yes, so when there is this high death rate and high birth rate, and then death rate falls, and then and then birth rate is something like this, continues, falls, and then so when there is high death rate, so this is my birth rate, this is my death rate. At the first stage, this is the pestilence and famine. This is the stage of pestilence and famine. In this stage where there is high birth rate and high death rate, it has also been seen that there is a high prevalence of famines, infectious disease, pestilence and all this. People are, once they are affected by some infectious disease, there is no immunization, nothing, no awareness, and people don't really live after they are affected by the disease, So what happens is, in the first stage, naturally, because of this pestilence and famine, this is natural growth. I will change. So because of this pestilence and famine, the number of death is high. Eventually, in the second stage, this is receding pandemics. With this, evolution of medical sciences, with betterment of medical system, with more learning. So in the second stage, the pandemic starts declining, and you can see this has eventually been reflected by the declining death rate, isn't it? So this receding pandemics, and then the third stage is degenerative and man-made diseases. This is degenerative and man-made diseases. Now what does this mean? This means degenerative, people don't die, they live with these diseases, and man-made is because of my lifestyles, the cardiovascular disease, the type 2 diabetes, the cancer, because of the nutrition, the smoking, the pollution, the stress, that kind of work we do, no physical exercise, the kind of food, the fat based food and all this. So we slowly have started evolving, started being affected by this man-made diseases, which are also known as NCD or non-communicable diseases, right? So after this receding pandemics, when these infectious diseases, malnutrition are past, then these new kind of problems arrive, which is happening in India right now, right? And then the fourth stage is delayed degenerative diseases. And emerging infections, and scientists have seen that in the fourth stage new kind of infections may arrive, and say nowadays we are being affected by the swine flu, or lot of these dengue cases, different types of HIV/AIDS were still there in some countries, are still there in some countries. Forget about HIV/AIDS, Ebola Ebola virus was there. So different kinds of new infections are arriving, and these new infections are arriving also because of the climate change. Say malaria. Malaria is prevalent now in Europe. It's unimaginable. So and this is the epidemiological transition, and these four are the four stages of epidemiological transition. With the course of development, we see another change, another kind of transition, that is known as nutrition transition. So which is associated with epidemiological transition. This nutrition transition says with the development, the first one was high physical exercise, only hunted gathered food, no cultivation. In the second stage the cultivation prevails, the agriculture starts getting improved or starts prevailing, and people have started taking a more of cereal based food, cooked home cooked cereal based food, lot of mandatory exercises. It has not really come down. On the other hand, in the third stage, it's like more of fat based food, sedentary lifestyle, technical lifestyle, westernization, urbanization, ready made salt sugar based food, soft drinks and all this, and which causes this non communicable diseases, right? And then the fourth stage is behavioral change. Then people realize that we have been taking a lot of bad taken up a lot of bad healthy behavior, so which is basically unhealthy, and then we took a lot of junk foods which are not nutritious. We never did exercise for a long time, so there is that self-induced exercise and self-motivated diet practices or diet regimes. Says people take more of a salad, pure juice, fruits and all these things. Yeah, so this is the behavioral change. So these are the four stages. Yeah, so which this nutrition transition says along with this theory of epidemiological transition. And now, having said that, when we talk this, talk about this natural growth, so it certainly changes the age-sex composition of the population, which is it changes the population's age-sex composition. Why it changes the population's age-sex composition? That's primarily because when there is a high birth rate and low death rate, so a lot of young people will be there, right? Lot of young people, and then a lot of death has come down, especially death at the child mortality rate, infant mortality rate has come down, along with improvement in maybe the life expectancy. But more than that, life expectancy at elder ages, but more than that, average life expectancy at birth has increased by a lot of margin. So but then the number of birth has not come down, so this area contributes towards the natural growth and which changes the population's sex composition. If there is any sex preference, then that is a different story altogether. Thank you.